Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hang on, I gotta turn this volume down on my computer before all of my alerts start popping up. So, welcome to Wednesday night. Happy Hump Day. Today's January 10th, the 10th day of our 30 books in 30 weeks reading challenge. I'm going to let you all get some time to get in here because I know that title caught y'all. Good sex, bad relationships. So, for those of you who are on with me live, please take a moment, share this out because this is some good stuff here. For those of you who may not already know who I am, Marcy Batiste here, speaker, trainer, author, and leader of 1,000 women. That's what we're doing. Leading 1,000 women to embrace their star power. Hey, David, welcome. I'm glad you're here listening. It's going to be a good message. I mean, it's going to be good. But leading 1,000 women to really, truly embrace their star power. And what does that look like? What does that mean in their lives? I just want them to feel as amazing as I feel. That's what it means to me. So for those of you who don't know what I do, though, I own a company called Bankable Success Advisors, which is a leading recovery solutions provider. And I work with a number of women on curing emotional bankruptcy, men too. But my passion, my commitment on everything that I do, the purpose for everything that I do, like I said, is to lead this community of women to truly embrace their star power and not to let anyone dim their light. Like, I believe that we can all shine brightly. We can all shine in our own space. There's enough abundance of in the world for all of us to share that. So one of the things that I often do, and I have been doing for the past several months, is reinvesting in my personal development. And when I get better, my clients get better. And what better way to learn and retain information than to teach it? And so I've decided for 2018, I can't talk, to raise the bar. And I'm raising the bar for my clients. I'm raising the bar with my new coaching program, 60 Days Laser Coaching. And I'm raising the bar on myself, my own personal development, my own business development. And I decided the reading challenge has been great the last few months. The sharing has been wonderful the last few months. But I really wanted to take it and up-level the experience, both for myself and for you guys as viewers. And so what I decided to do was do 30 books in 30 weeks. So this is going to take us through July, reading all these different books. And so it's great going back through my personal development library and pulling out the ones that were game changers for me. And so for this week too, we're focusing on this book right here. It's called Women Who Love Too Much by Robin Norwood. And this book was a lifesaver for me the first 2 times I read it. Hey Kiana, hey Dale. But this time it's really super cool because I get to pull out the pieces that were the most impactful for me and then share that with you all. And so today's message, good sex, bad relationships, is huge because so many times people struggle with thinking that sex means there's a connection. Hey Ruby, sex does not mean there's a connection. It doesn't mean that at all. Sex is sex. So how do you I know you can't like virtually raise your hand for me or type something in the comments if you've ever said to yourself, like, I don't understand why the relationship went so bad. The sex was amazing. It was off the chain. Like, we were firing on all cylinders sexually, but the relationship fell apart. That was me. I did that. I did that a few times in several different relationships, actually, because I am comfortable with my sexuality, and I enjoy a great sexual experience. And so before I realized who I was, who I am, what my needs are, and learned to advocate for myself, I made many of the mistakes that we're going to talk about tonight. And so, like I always tell y'all, when I bring this stuff up, I'm not bringing you something I don't know about. I made mistakes. I had great sex in bad relationships. It happens. But the important thing is to know why it happens and to be okay admitting that it happened. Good sex in bad relationships is a reality for a lot of people. A lot of people stay in relationships long after the relationship died because the sex is freaking amazing. It's off the chart. It makes you feel a certain kind of way. And for women in particular, because like I said, this book, women who love too much, but like I've been sharing with you guys all week, don't let the title fool you, because men make these same mistakes. This is a people thing. This is not, hey, Pat, this is not just a women thing. A lot of people men stay in relationships because the sex is bomb too. It's not just the women. So let's be honest about that, number one. But a couple things happen that allow us to stay in dead relationships because the sex is good. Number one, a lot of times, especially for women, that we confuse sexual attention for emotion or affection. Sexual attention is not emotion. It's not affection. Yesterday, my message was about dating people who are emotionally unavailable. You can have amazing sex with somebody who is emotionally unavailable because the sex and the emotion don't necessarily have anything to do with each other, and we need to be clear about that. We need to be clear about it, and we need to be honest about it. Not the same thing. Not the same thing. I'm trying to look at my notes because I was just like, you know what? I need to make sure that I bring this message to you guys in a way that is that you can digest it and really understand, like, conceptually behind it. The good sex and bad relationships. Like, one of the things they say, one of the things that the author talks about in this book, she talks about modeling the behaviors of the same-sex parent. And so, like, for me, in that happened to me. Like, I planted my feet and I said, I'm not going to be like my mom. And then I ended up doing all of the same things in many of the same ways and making the same mistakes as her, even though I had observed that for her, those were mistakes and that they didn't bode well. Hey, Jen. Hey, V. I knew that it wasn't right, but I didn't know how to do it different. And I always say, if you want to receive different, you have to do different. But I wasn't doing different. I was modeling the behaviors that were demonstrated to me throughout my childhood and my teen years. And so I ended up in the same types of relationships with emotionally unavailable people and abusive men. That's what I did. Now, the most abusive relationship had some of the best sex in the world, y'all. Like, oh my God. When I tell you, it was one of those relationships where the chemistry literally hurt because we fired on all cylinders in everywhere except where it mattered, which was values, beliefs, emotional connection. It was more about, for him, it was more about possession. It wasn't about affection. And I wasn't defining between the two because the sex was so freaking off the chain. The fun was off the chain. The excitement was off the chain. But everything that you build, we had plenty of passion, but with passion comes obstacles, it comes struggle. But we didn't have values. We didn't have a foundation. We didn't have all that boring stuff that really strong relationships are made of. But we had some bomb sex. Being sexually responsive or sexually available to try and invoke feelings of love and affection, I call that sexual coercion, right? And so a lot of times and I'm going to speak from a woman's perspective because that's what I am. And I'm going to tell you transparently the mistakes that I made to make myself available sexually in hopes that would lead to something else. And then I have good girlfriends of mine who will say, oh my God, like we had amazing sex and we have such a connection. And I look at them and I say, sex is not a connection. It's not. Do not confuse the two. Just because you had sex with him, even sex is not intimacy. Hey, Donovan. Hey, Brad. Sex is not intimacy. Sex is not love. Sex is sex. Sex is literally a physical release and a natural response to a physical desire. It has nothing to do with emotion. So you can very well be emotionally unavailable. You can very well be in a relationship with someone who's emotionally unavailable, and you can be sexually intimate and not have any intimacy whatsoever. They don't go together, you guys. They don't go together. So that's how you have good sex and bad relationships. And so for me, in my experience, because I'm going to tell y'all, truth, transparent, authentic, 100. For me, what I would do back in the day, before I knew better, start doing differently, was I would think that by making myself available, then he would be more responsive. So I would give myself sexually. We would have that exchange. And then when he left and it was all over, I felt lonely all over again. But I thought that the sex, this is what I naively thought. And this is what I know for a fact a lot of people think this. I naively thought that the sex would cure the loneliness, that it would cure, and it would cure the emptiness that I felt. But what I realized was that sexual behavior pattern, and I'm going to call it a sexual behavior pattern, because it wasn't anything else. It was a behavior pattern that I was choosing to be in during this relationship. And so I thought I was providing temporary solutions that were then creating permanent problems, where if I had dealt with the problem to begin with, I wouldn't have resorted and expected sex to fix a relationship that was not built on a solid foundation. Does that make sense? So for me, it was like the sex gave a temporary feeling of intimacy. It wasn't real. It gave a temporary feeling of affection. There was no affection. It was sex. It gave a release. Like it was just there. It made me feel good. It made me feel beautiful. It made me feel sexy. It made me feel all of these things that weren't real. It wasn't real, you guys. It was just sex. Sex is not a connection. Sex is not a foundation for a relationship. So yes, you can have great sex, bomb sex in shitty relationships. Excuse my language, but dang, guys, for real. Let's see, Mrs. McFarland, the sex makes it a lot worse because us as females are always mostly attached both physically and mentally. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's that we think that, yes, Donna, a temporary high. We think that because we're having all these feelings during sex, that these feelings equate to affection or they equate to emotion, and they don't. They're temporary. And so those temporary things that I sought after sex to cure loneliness and detachment and abandonment issues and all this other BS then left me with permanent problems, really truly feeling like I'm permanently insecure. Now I feel like nobody wants me. I feel like I can't keep a relationship. I'm not doing it right. I can't keep a man. All this stuff's going through my mind afterwards that ends up being 10 times worse than it was before I laid with him. 10 times worse. Like, the insecurities were like exponentially worse after you have sex with someone and they leave you, male or female, because I know I got some sisters out there that will put it down for a brother and then not call him back, not return his calls. We do the same thing, y'all. This is not gender specific, and nobody escapes it. It happens. But when you know different, you do different, you get different. But if you keep doing the same things, you're going to keep getting what you always got. Matter of fact, this ex that I'm talking about, that relationship, is the same one that ended in domestic violence. It ended that way because, like I said, remember when I told y'all the passion was off the chain, the sex was off the chain, all of that was off the chain. Everything was always extra. Like we had our own special song. And I don't know if y'all heard that song by Trey Songz, Can't Be Friends. Like that's how jacked up the relationship was. Like we knew that if this doesn't work out, we'll never, ever, ever be able to be friends. It will go so bad that there's no recovering. And that's exactly what happened. But I didn't digest in my mind that meant that it was going to end in domestic violence. And I'm not suggesting that all relationships that have good sex and end up being bad relationships are violent ones. What I'm saying is they're toxic. They're unhealthy for us. But it's not even just the relationship, because the toxicity and the unhealthiness and the mindsets are within us before we ever get into the relationships. I'm suggesting that we get into relationships at a time that we're not prepared for, when we really need to be focusing on us instead of being distracted by putting our focus on someone else or putting our focus on sex. I love having sex, just like everybody else does. But I'm not going to do it or have it so that it compromises my health, my mindset, my well-being, my business, my life. Because now that I know different and I really truly invested time figuring out who I am, I know that sex will never be the thing that completes me. But this is the thing that he used to always say. He said, it's only a few things that come from sex: STDs, babies, and feelings. Take your pick. Choose your poison. I was like, and when I thought about it afterwards, I'm like, well, damn, like he told you who he was and you didn't listen, mama. You didn't listen. That's on you. That's not on him. He told you this is what comes from sex: STDs, babies, and feelings. I didn't catch an STD and I didn't catch a baby, but I caught feelings. He didn't. He caught possessiveness. He caught a whole lot of things that were, again, not love. And so, there's different kinds of love, and the Greek have these terms like agape and eros and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not a theologian. You all know that. I tell you that all the time. But basically, like agape love is that it's built on comfort. It's built on trust. It's sustainability. It's that person's going to have your back. Like you don't have to pretend you're something that you're not. You don't have to do things you wouldn't ordinarily do in order to receive that love. You don't need to just make yourself sexually available for someone in exchange for their attention. If I can't get your attention without us having to have sex, then I really don't want your attention, because your intention costs too much. It costs too much. And then you've got the eros. I think it's the eros love. Then it's built on passion. That's what me and my ex had. We had passion that came with struggle. It came with strife. It came with drama. It came with all these things, and it also came with amazing sex. But what I also know to be true is that I've had the reverse, and I've had amazing sex with someone that I really care about and that really cares about my best interest. Now, they're very different, but they're both great in the moment. It's just that one sustains you afterwards and the other one leaves you void and empty afterwards. And so really it's about, what do you want after the sex is over? Because anybody can give you bomb sex. They really can. And honestly, if you look at a lot of the statistics and they talk about what sex is, I think they say that the average sexual encounter, not including foreplay and that after cuddle, is like 5 to 7 minutes. So you're going to compromise your emotional health and your happiness for 5 to 7 minutes of sexual pleasure? I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. And so that's my message about good sex and bad relationships. If you have to ask yourself, oh my gosh, like the sex was amazing, but the relationship sucked, I don't know where I went wrong. More than likely, that's where you went wrong, thinking that sex was part of the relationships, and sex is just sex. Sex is not a connection. Sex is not an emotion. It's a response to a physical need for release. Get that. Get that. And if you want different, do different. Okay? So that's my takeaway from tonight. It was a good message. It was a message that maybe some of you didn't expect to hear from me because of what I usually talk about. But one thing that you need to understand is that I work with a lot of women, and we talk about sex. We talk about it. Hey, Woody, thank you. We talk about it in a way that is empowering and leaves us feeling whole and complete. And that's an important component. It's not about, like I always tell, like I tell one of the girls in my Facebook group that targets specifically sex and intimacy. One of the things I talk about is you can have it all. You can still be a sexual being and have respect and receive respect. You can have an amazing career, the job, the family, the dog, the picket fence, whatever it is you want. You can have all that and still have amazing sex, but you have to not compromise all that other stuff in exchange for it. And we seem to think that sex is an even exchange for affection, and it's not. So I hope that makes sense. So make sure, if you haven't already done so, make sure you share this video out. If you're checking it out later, make sure you go over to my YouTube channel, subscribe over there. About to really start doing some good stuff on YouTube. So don't want you to miss that. Oh, one other thing. The 60-day laser coaching program, Raising the Bar Laser Coaching Program, starts next Monday. There's still some time to register. If you're interested in that, hit my website, hit my inbox, whatever the case may be. But in the meantime and in between time, guys, have amazing sex. Don't have bad relationships. And I thank you all, as always, for living life on Mars. We'll talk soon.